That's what I want to do. Okie doke. We're off and running. Oh, geez, here. Good. Alrighty. Yeah, we're cruising along. It's amazing because we started early that we're so far along in the semester because I'm not used to this. But next week is our week, the last week before spring break. And then we only have a few weeks after that. Nina's going to be presenting her work right after spring break, and we've got some guests coming in. In fact, I need to tell Ethan what date I have him down for. He said he'd be coming, but I forgot to tell him when. So we're not going to be doing a lot of heavy coding or anything like that. So this is a time when people can try things out, and we can see where they're going. Oh yeah, Alessandra, thank you. I remembered. Life is good. Okay, and what I want to do tonight is go through a couple of things, but right off the bat, we're going to finish up some of the stuff. I want to show you some things about how you can take that single mic that we did the localization for and turn that into an array, which was kind of what John's project was ultimately going to be about. And then I want to show you a quick and dirty way of creating kind of an ongoing ambient sound, because that's going to be possibly important later in the class. And then we're going to start fooling around with bringing photos and videos in and show you how Unity has set up to allow you to do that. So for some of you, this will be review. I think Mengtai, you know all this stuff, but it'll be kind of fun to go through it, see different perspectives sometimes. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to bring up the mic that was localized. Okay, let me do this. Share screen, basic, share computer sound. Desktop 1, share. Okay, there we are. Right, we can get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of that. Okay, I'll leave this here for now. And let me start up our project that has this. Oh, I need to move this over here, I think. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, and I'll move it out of the way if I need to. So I'm going to my Unity Hub. Where'd you go, Unity Hub? Oh, there it is. And we're going to start up with this one up here, okay? I'm going to show you the other one after we finish this. Again, a lot of times I'm showing these projects because they illustrate a technique or a way of doing things that I think will be important to know as you begin to develop your own work. This is one of the biggest challenges of any complicated program, whether it be Unity or Unreal, or we might talk a little bit about Blender tonight, is just learning how to kind of negotiate and navigate around the screen. And okay, this is not going to work. Okay, that's probably not going to work either. There we go. I'll just leave that like that. Now I can't see anybody, but that's okay. All right, so here we go. Now I'll just kind of run this through again. And what we did was we set it up so that it is basically playing. Okay, let me get this. Sorry, I'm having to move stuff out of the way that you can't see. They show up on the video, but it allows me to get to the controls and things like that. Okay, so we made that script with that localized instrument into it, and we have an ambient sound playing back through that cylinder object, okay? So if we even look at, like, we called it mic 1, if we look over here, this is our mic 1 sound script. We won't look at it right now. We're gonna take a look again briefly at it later as I expand it, but let me just kind of remind you what it sounded like. Hopefully this will work. Start this up. Yeah, it is. Cool. Can you guys, I can't see you. Let me know with your voice. Can you hear the sound okay?
Left speaker only?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, I will put it in the right because it's localized. There you go. So it should be panning.
Yep, it's panning.
Right, now you hear it stopped. We're going to address that in a little bit. Okay, that's because the clip is only 50 seconds long. So after 50 seconds, it stops playing. But before we do that, we're going to stereoize this, okay? And the way we're going to do that is by taking this mic here, and we're going to make another one just like it over here and play the second channel of that 2-channel sound file through that one. Well, you can build it all up by hand, but there's a much easier way to do this, okay? You can go up here to edit, and you can say duplicate. And look, it created another one with exactly the same everything, okay? We're going to call this mic 2, though. And the first thing we're going to do is to differentiate it from mic 1 is that rather than it being at, okay, here we are. Okay, we're going up here. Okay, here's our XY plane, and that's at X is -5, Z is 0, and Y is 2, I think, or 0, something like that. Okay, we're going to take this guy, and we're going to make him be at +5. And see, he's right over there. So now we have a nice stereo pair of microphone playback things, okay, that we're facing, all right? Now, you're thinking, that's cool, that's all I need to do. But there is, in fact, more that you need to do. Because when I duplicated this, it referenced all of the same stuff that this does. And one of those same things, if I look at this, it's also calling mic 1 sound script. Now that's a problem because having two objects calling the same script, well, first of all, it won't give us a way to differentiate the left and the right channel. And secondly, it will cause some internal problems where Unity is going, oh, what do you want me to do? You know, because you're going to be calling all the functions twice. So the simple way to deal with this is to also duplicate that script. Now it turns out everything else got duplicated okay. The renderer is unique to that object. The collider is unique to that object. It's just this script that we have to deal with. So if we go down here, we can find our mic 1 sound, and we can actually either do edit duplicate up there, or if you do option and drag it and see the little plusy thing, we can just like release it, and we have mic 1 sound 1. We'll call it mic 2 sound. Okay. And you're going to see an error down here. It says the namespace blah, blah, blah already contains a definition for mic 1 sound. Well, yes, it does, because it's defined in this script. We're going to open this script up, okay? And what we need to do is change the name of that component where we have all the functions and all that stuff. And while we're at it, we'll go ahead and change the channel that it's playing back so that we'll be all like ready to go when we're finished with this. So here comes our Visual Studio. And now we can look at mic 2 sound. Come on, mic 2 sound. There we go. First thing we're going to do, change it to be mic 2 sound. There. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to give it another RTC Mix object number, and we'll just go in order. You don't have to. We'll call that object number 1 to keep it different in terms of the audio that it's handling. And how else do we keep it different? We go down here, and in our mix command, notice we're playing our input channel 0 through output channel 0. We're going to take our input channel 1 and play that through output channel 1 and turn off channel 0. So now that microphone output thing on the right-hand side will be playing the right-hand channel, okay? So we save that, okay? Everything else we don't need to change because it's doing what we want it to do. Now we're going to go back to Unity. And we need to go to mic 2. And now we have to remove that script. And you go to the little geary things. One of the things about Unity is that they have like insanely tiny little things that you have to deal with. We're going to see some others later today. Okay, but let's go ahead and remove that component. And instead, we're going to take mic 2 sound and put it up on mic 2. Okay, so now mic 2 has, let me collapse these a little bit, our mic 2 sound script on it. So now mic 1 has mic 1 sound, mic 2 has mic 2 sound. Let's play it, and hopefully we'll get a nice stereo image, okay? Oh, the thing I always told you that I forget to do is mic 2. Oh, we have an audio source. Oh shoot, I'm doing something terribly wrong again. Hang on, guys. We're going to have to take a look at that script again and see what I did. Okay. Mic 1 is playing mic 1 sound. Mic 2 is playing mic 2 sound. Here's the audio source. Let's take a look at this.
Are they both playing from left side? No.
That could be. Let's try. Oh, this should work. Okay, I have a version of this that I've already made, and if all else fails, we'll just go take a look at that and see what I did wrong. This should be +5 for one thing, because I moved the object, so the Y location is now +5. Okay. Let me try playing it again. Huh. I'm not getting any sound coming through there. So you could normally look, if I look at mic 1, it's too low actually. I guess I'm not getting any sound coming through there either. Dang, guys, this is going to be such a great class. But so far it's not. Okay, let me open up the one that I know works, and basically what I showed you is what I wanted to show you. But now let me go back to.
But I heard it from both speakers.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Huh.
I think so.
I wonder
Or
if
I'm
my
like,
microphone,
Audio preferences for Zoom or something? Or
no, it could be my headphones were weird. Well, I know this one works, so I'm going to go to this one. Okay, this will take it a second to compile, I think. Actually, let's look at the 4 mics localized, because I'm going to show you that one anyhow. And that's basically just taking what I did and now making an array of 4 microphones. So rather than just revisiting that same one, let's go to this one and take a look. Okay, and this will tell us if it's working or not. All right. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on, chasing down what Brad happened to mistype here. Okay. All right. So let's just play it first of all. Okay. I'm going to maximize on play so that we can hear good stuff. And you notice I have mic 1, mic 2, mic 3, mic 4. Each one of them is calling like a different script. If I look at my assets down here, you'll see mic 1, mic 2, mic 3, and mic 4. Those are all different scripts. And we can take a look at those in a second and see what I did wrong. But this should play back. Now, what I did was I have one stereo sound file playing between these two sort of things. I have the second stereo sound file playing between those two things back there, okay? So it's kind of an artificially created ambient sound. Both of the field recordings were made near each other, but they're different. But it's almost seamless. It just sounds like one place, which is kind of intriguing. So here I go. I'm gonna zoom in and, yeah. Now we're getting in full stereo. So I did do something wrong in my typing, okay? So I go over, now I'm between these two. If I go over to this one, I can hear it a little bit more. If I go over to this one, I can hear it a little bit more. Now, I don't know, you guys may be hearing a little bit of gapping in the sound. That's because of Zoom, okay? Now if I go back here, okay? Okay, and I can actually like rotate around and go back towards the other ones. But essentially now I'm getting like full spatialized, localized like output from all these different mics. Okay. So that's pretty cool. That's how it's supposed to work. Okay, let's take a look at my mic 2 sound and see what I might have done wrong with the other one, just for fun. And then I want to point something out that was a little subtle, but we're gonna do that in audio in just a second. Let's wait for this guy to come up. Hello, everybody. Okay. Come on, come on. There we go. Okay. So here is our mic 2 sound. Okay. And there's our obs node. We've named it mic 2. Come down here. No, this is exactly the same. Okay, I'm going to have to take a look at it and figure out what I mistyped on the other one, because maybe this was me. Nina, you said you were able to hear both channels. So, are you holding a
I
paper up for me to see?
no, no, no.
Okay, okay. I'm sorry, I was looking at these little tiny things that I have down below. Okay. Anyhow,
Yeah, but
um,
I'm wondering if others heard it in both speakers too, or both ears.
yeah. Could you all get the stereo in that last one when I was going around? I see one thumbs up. Yeah, pretty much, I guess. Okay, Mengtai did too. Good. Okay. Well, let's pretend like it worked then. Okay. All right. Now, I want you to notice something. One of the things that's different is that I was actually cruising around here much longer than 50 seconds. But you heard the sound going continuously. And I want to show you a way of kind of creating sort of a seamless sense of an ambience. It's really, really simple. Probably a lot of you even know how to do this already, but it's really useful for doing things with Unity, because then you don't have to have like sound files that are like 10 minutes long or anything like that. And even then you're going to run out of time in 10 minutes. Here's what we do. Okay, I'm going to quit Unity here. Quit Visual Studio here for a second. In fact, we're not going to be using Visual Studio much anymore, not until later in the class, if we even get there. Let me bring up the graphics program that I draw little things on. Okay, we're going to create a new image like that. Okay, and let's see. We're going to draw. All right, so we have time kind of going along like that. Okay. And let's see, I'm not going to be fancy with this or anything like this, okay? And let's say we have like a sound file up here, okay, that's a certain amount long, okay? And if you remember, I use that make table thing, let me just kind of print that out here, okay? Or I can say amp equals make table line. And I often do something like this where I say 0, 0, 10, 1, 90, 1, 100, 0, which draws basically a shape that looks like this. Starts at 0 for the first 10% of the note. It fades up to 1. I'm not going to draw the y-axis here. For the next up to 90% of the note, it stays at that level, 10 to 1 to 90 to 1. And then for 100% of the note, it goes back down to 0. Okay? So nice. I've got a nice fade in and a nice fade out. The trick is you use max bang to restart that whole note again, but you tell max bang to wait until about 80 seconds or 80% of the note. And then you draw a fade up again to 1. Then you draw a fade up over to here. Then you draw a fade back down and regenerate that max bang. And what you're doing is basically just dovetailing the amplitude fade up and fade down. You're playing the same thing each time, but if you separate it by enough, like a minute or so, you're not going to remember unless there's some really compelling acoustic artifacts in the sound. You're going to get a sense of a seamless ongoing ambience. And that's what I did in my last thing. In fact, let me just show you that with a max patch that I kind of crafted to show you how to do this. I won't type it all in. I already have it pre-made. Let's see, this guy right here. Okay. And here we go. Here we go. Come on, Max. Yay. Come on, Max. Go, Max MSP. Go. Okay. Yay. There we go. Okay. There's the thing. Let me make sure that I'm talking to the Zoom audio device here. Yes, I am. Okay. So, oh shoot, arg, here. Okay, so let's take a look at the script. Really simple. I'm finding the full path again in MaxMSP to the Whidbey water dot wave thing. Okay, and this one is only 15 seconds long. Okay, but again, I'm doing the same thing, fading up for 10%, fading down for 9%, and I have this rescheduler at 80% of the note. That's when it's going to generate a max bang that'll re-trigger the entire thing. And now if we listen to it, we'll hear. Watch the bang. And watch for it again. And you can see it's rather seamless. And again, I didn't spend a whole lot of time even like kind of fine tuning that or anything like that, but it does give you the sense of an ongoing ambience. So this is something that I use a lot in Unity. I'm going to show you later on when you want to have a dramatic change and you have like something that's playing for 15, 20, 25 seconds or something, how do you stop it? Well, we'll burn that bridge when we get to it, as my mentor Paul Lansky used to say all the time. Okay. So we'll quit all this, all right? And now we're going to completely change gears, and we're going to start looking at photos, all right? And we're going to start out really basic, how you bring a photo into Unity. And then we're going to start fooling around with the photo. How do you do interesting stuff with photos in Unity? And then ultimately, how do you bring a video into Unity? And how do you do fun stuff with that? So I'm going to start up a Unity project, okay? I'm going to make a new one. All right. And we're going to go to week 6. Okay, select our folder. ARG. And we will call this g6611 week 6 photos and stuff. Okay. So we'll start it up. Like I said, we're going to be pretty basic about this because I don't want to get too carried away, and I'm going to try not and go too fast because that's when I get into trouble. Here we go, here we go. Here comes Unity. And I have some recent photos that we're going to use. Here comes our Unity project. Okay, ARG. Bring that down a little bit. Okay, so we've got our basic Unity scene here with the skybox and our observer and everything like that. Okay, first thing we want to do is I want to make this main camera come up a little bit. They always put it like way far back. I'm going to make it be -5. Okay, because we want to see some things about it. And I'm not going to put in a plane or anything like that. I'm just going to start out. I'm going to put in a cube, just a basic cube here. So let me go to Game Object, 3D Object, Cube. Okay, and there we go. Right there, right kind of in front of us, and we can see the cube. We can, look at the cube. It's just a simple, basic white cube. Maybe we'll make it a little bit bigger for now. We'll make it be 2 in the X dimension and 2 in the Y dimension. We'll leave the Z dimension like it is for now because we're going to fool around with that a little bit, okay? Well, I want to display a picture in Unity. I got a cube, so maybe I can display the picture on the cube. Well, I've got this nice picture of my home here in the snow that we got last weekend that basically completely stranded us on Whidbey Island. We got about 7 or 8 inches, which is more than they typically get in about 10 years. So it's not like, New York, except the difference is like I said, they only have like 1 snowplow on this whole island. And we were literally just completely trapped. Fortunately, we had lots of groceries and wine and good stuff. Here's how you do it. Simply take this home picture, drag it into your assets. All right. Then you got it. How are you going to do it? Well, this is kind of magic, okay? We put it out and we put it onto the cube. And there it is. However, the magic, notice that a subfolder here popped up that says materials, okay? The way that objects, any object, even objects, we're going to talk about creating objects outside of Unity, so you don't have to be stuck with just like squares and platonic solids and stuff. Any object that you have, in order to display something on it, color or anything like that, in the past you've noticed we've created a material. Well, when I dragged this over here, it created a material for me automatically, and it gave it the same name as the picture, okay? If I select that material, it will give me all of the characteristics of that material. And in fact, you'll see a little picture of the home here. If I built the material by hand, I would need to take that picture. And if I hit, this is where I talked about little tiny things. See that little circle there? If I click on this, it allows me to select, calling it a texture. It's just a JPEG image, you know, that's the texture. It allows me to select that and apply it to the albedo. That's the surface reflectance of it, okay? So there it is. Now, you'll notice that it's upside down. That's because it wraps the texture around the cube. And if you want that face to be displaying properly, you can actually just go in, and all you have to do is rotate it in the X dimension, I guess, by 180 degrees. Nope, the Z dimension by 180 degrees. Yeah, okay. Or you can go in and actually just futz around with the import characteristics, but you don't really need to do that. We'll just do it like this, okay? Now, we can start having fun with this cube, okay? Let's go back and look at our material. And all these other things that you can fool with when you're just creating a material, you can fool with it and apply it to that image too. For example, I can bring up a color palette and I can tint the image, okay? Pretty straightforward. You know, I can change the tint up to here and make it greenish, you know, or whatever. And probably of limited utility until you step back and think. Remember what I told you last time, that all these components that you attach to an object on an inspector, basically all these things are kind of interfaces, you know, like these boxes and stuff like that. When I declared a float public variable, these are all connected to code so that you can actually change the color in code. And so you can have like a rotating color palette or something like that and just do psychedelic tricks with your image. One of the things that we're going to talk about later is this thing called the alpha value. Now, this is not going to do anything right now because we have to set it up, but it's a way of fading the image in and out, which is kind of a cool thing to be able to do. All right. Second thing, now when we're changing the albedo refers to reflectance. You know, that's the thing that they're really worried about at the North Pole. You know, because the ice has an albedo, we're melting our ice, it won't reflect, it gets worse, life is bad, okay? It's reflecting the light. So we can also alter the color of this by going into the lighting and changing the color of the light itself, okay? And this is all the environmental like stuff and everything like this, but the sun source, that directional light, that's the thing we're going to look at. So if you go over here, then we can go in and we can start modifying the color, and you'll see that it has an effect. So again, the color and lighting models in these 3D graphic programs are very sophisticated in terms of how they calculate ultimately what you see. And if you want a very specific color, sometimes it's a little tricky to get it to work, okay? There's something else that I wanted to point out about this that we talked about last time, okay? You can change the way that this light is striking your image through its transform. Now, see up above here, okay, let me, hold on. Okay, we're looking at this light. And if I rotate the X, okay, let me move this around so you can see it. See how it's changing the angle of that stuff? And you can see on the camera image down below, oh, I just pointed out, you can't see me pointing. You can see down here that it's changing the amount of light that's hitting that surface depending on how I rotate it. I can also rotate it in the Y direction and do the same thing. Now, here's your thinking, well, hey, I'm going to take this camera and I'm going to put it over here and I'm going to aim it directly at that thing. Well, this is a little misleading. This location for this directional light bears nothing to do with reality. I can put the location way out at like 5,000 and it's still going to be doing that stuff, okay? That's because this directional light is everywhere. It completely permeates. The only thing that is reflected in what you see is this sort of direction that it's doing. And the scale doesn't change a thing. You know, it's only the rotation of the light and how it then strikes the objects based on the X, Y, and the Z rotation of the light, okay? Now, there's other lights that you can use though, okay? Do I want to show that now? Yeah. Let's go back in here a little bit. Okay, we're going to look at this guy. Going to put him like that. And just for fun, let's turn off this directional light. So it's kind of dark. We still see a lot of light. If we go to lighting, we can now do things like we can like take the intensity multiplier of the ambient light way down. And we actually then see nothing on this, okay? That's the ambient light that strikes it from all directions, okay? So we can make it really washed out if we want to. But I'm going to keep it pretty low for now. And I'm going to go in here to my game object. I'm going to go down to light. Look, there's other lights you can add. You can add an area light. You can add a spotlight. I'm going to add a point light because those are really fun, okay? And it put it right in the middle of that cube. Well, I'm going to take it out of that cube. Let me take the position and move it out a little bit along the X dimension. Let's see where we are. Let me move it out this way. Aha! That's what I wanted to do. Notice that this light is lighting that. And if I get closer to it, you can see how the light is, it's literally like a little floor lamp, you know, and it's like putting light out based on that. And you can change the range of this light over here. Make it be like really, really big or something like that. And you can actually see the range if you want to by drawing a halo, okay? And in order to see this halo, you have to pull it in a little bit. So you can actually see the halo around the light, okay? By changing the range, you can change the color of it, you know, make it like a reddish light, and it's like hitting red on that. So you can do a lot by kind of positioning these different point lights around. I use them a lot. The intensity, you can like, you know, it can be really intense or not intense. Again, these are all different characteristics that you can apply to the light, okay? And you can see down here, I should add some capability of moving this camera around so that we can like get around the scene a little bit. Let me go to my observer move, put it down here in assets. Put my mover thing up on my main camera. That's still compiling. Okay, stop compiling. Put it up on my main camera. There we go. That's still compiling. Stop compiling. Okay, I think it's compiled now. Put it up on my main camera. Right. Let's give it some capabilities here. 3, 1. Okay, so now if I play my game, okay, and I like kind of rotate this around, you know, I can see that there's this weird tracings of this light over here. Yeah. So I've got this weird halo light here. And if I want it to be much more dramatic, like I said, I can actually go into the lighting and turn off the intensity multiplier so that all I get is what is being lit by the point light. Okay, so let's go in here. Ooh, it looks kind of really mystical now. You can just barely see our house outline. So again, these are kind of the fun things that you can do with these lights, okay? And you know, stuff like that. Well, let's get rid of our point light here, okay? Let's go back to our directional light and turn it on.
Hey, Brad, while you're on the topic,
Sure.
just tips and tricks for the people. Um, what the Brad had talked a number of weeks ago about baking your lighting, and I just wanted to clear up for people that although he said when you bake your lighting, it does a bunch of computations and stuff for you, and it has to do with like how fast your game will run, like the how fast your like processor has to work on your game. Baking the lighting is always good when you have a lot of lights. If you bake the light maps beforehand, your game doesn't have to do all those computations in real time. So once you start adding a lot of these point lights, if you don't bake your lighting, your computer is just gonna lag, and you're gonna be like totally unable to work on the project. Like if you accidentally play your game and you have too many lights that are unbaked, you're gonna have a real struggle even just exiting the play mode to like go back to the editor, depending on your computer.
Right.
So
Now,
once you start going crazy with a lot of lights, you should do a little more research on how to maximize the effectiveness of like the resources you're using.
yeah, John's absolutely right. I do have to say that Unity has been pretty good about this, and I haven't had too many problems. But when I do finish my final projects, I go through and I bake every light that I can. The thing that makes a decision about whether or not to bake a light or not is if the light is going to have to move. You know, because if the light itself moves, then you have to recalculate its direction and shadows, and you can't do the baking, which pre-calculates all that. You
And
know,
I don't know about Unity, but in Unreal, there's 3 types of light sources. A light can be static, stationary, or dynamic. And that has to do with the way that the shadows are behaving. Like a static light has like totally pre-baked shadows. A stationary light has like most of the shadow and like the way the light interacts with other objects baked in, unless another object moves through the shadow. And then dynamic is for like lights that move and the shadows adjust based on lots of other things.
Right.
So like I'm sure Unity has probably different names, but like another similar idea. And like if all of your lights are static, they don't take up very much computing power. But if they're all dynamic, that means that like in real time your computer is calculating the physics of how the light interacts with everything like all the time.
yeah.
Which you probably don't need for all your lights. That's
Right.
probably not something that you're needing.
Definitely. And in fact, John's pointing out something else about these game engines. The amount of research and time and stuff that's put into lighting, for example, is just scary. Or different kinds of textures and texturing and things like that. The Unity audio system is just pathetic. It's like, oh yeah, we need some sound. We can play back some stuff. You know, that's why we did this whole RTC Mix in Unity project. You know, was to try to give us access to, you know, at least something close to the state of the art in digital sound audio. So we have all these great filters and things like that. But yeah, it's, you know, it's a little tricky, as you've noticed. But yeah, it is pretty amazing. Anyhow, right.
My rant is over.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I like rants. They're good. Yeah, it's definitely worth, you know, there's so much to learn about this program. It's definitely worth getting into it if you're going to be doing some serious stuff. You know, I'm sure, for example, Mengtai has learned an awful lot about lighting, you know, because I've seen some of his recent work. And yeah, Nina learned a lot about RTC Mix, her garden project. But yeah, and that's what you do. You just try stuff out. It's fun, you know. I mean, yeah, make backups a lot. But you can go in and just start messing around with these things and come up with all kinds of stuff. In fact, we're about to do that again. We're about to mess around with some stuff, okay? Like, here's the thing. Like the skybox is kind of fun, but it's pretty boring, you know? What if I wanted to have a really nice sort of scene of a sunset that I could use to kind of set off my house in a cube right here, okay? Turns out I have a picture of a sunset that we're going to get. All right, let me find it. There it is. So this is actually the scene from our back porch. That's Mount Rainier, Puget Sound, Seattle's down there. And it's, yeah, it's really lovely. How do I get that onto this thing, all right? Well, this time we're going to go ahead and pre-create a material because I want to talk about what we're going to do to make that material accessible to act as this skybox thing, okay? So let's go down here and we're going to create, we'll say material, okay? And we'll call this sky mat. We'll call this sunset mat, okay? And just for fun, let's put it in our materials folder since they conveniently made that for us and everything like that. And let's go and look at it, okay? So basically, it starts out with nothing there. Like I said, though, we can select that picture and make it the material by clicking next to this albedo. Oh, I forgot to show you one more thing. I'll get to that later, okay? And we can click on this, and now this material, and you can see it showing up on this little weird display of what it looks like as it's wrapped on a sphere. It doesn't look very good. We could actually apply this now to our cube if we wanted to, okay? Like so. We're not going to do that though, because we want to use it for this sky. Well, how do we do that? Well, we can go to lighting here, okay? And it says, oh, look, skybox material. Let's use our sunset mat. But look, it didn't work out very well at all, did it? Well, that's because, okay, it says here, shader of this material does not support skybox rendering. Ooh, there's a clue, the shader. Here's the thing. When you look at these materials, okay, for example, let me look at this Home 1 material. Okay, and we were fooling around with this albedo. The thing I didn't show you that I was going to show you is that you can also turn on emission, which basically makes the thing glow. And you can actually set the color of this emission, and you can set a halo for it also if you'd like, okay? But that's a feature of this thing. I mentioned this last time, these things called shaders, okay? A shader, everything that you see that gets rendered on an object is done by what they call a shader. A shader is basically just a specific type of code that runs on the graphics processing unit of your computer. So it runs extraordinarily fast, especially if you've got like an NVIDIA TI 386 card or whatever they've got these days. You know, they're really, really highly optimized to doing kind of array graphics processing. All right. Oh no. I'm almost out of batteries on my little like cheat sheety thing here. And I'm going to need to see this too. Let me see, what can I do? Not much. Oh well, I'll have to start like looking at it on here later. Okay, so what these shaders do, or these are different pieces of code, and there's specific shaders for specific things. For example, if I click on this, there's all these different shaders. If you're developing stuff for your graphics, for your iPhone or something, you can use the mobile shaders. For particle systems, these are the shaders that you use to light the particles. There's all these different kinds of things, and you can actually just kind of randomly select them and see what they look like. Like, what would this look like on this cube if it used a particle system shaders? We'll use the standard surface. Well, it didn't do much of anything. Well, it didn't work at all, to tell you the truth. Well, it kind of did. It's just kind of bizarre. Let's look at say sprites. What if we looked at a diffuse shader for a sprite? How would that look? Well, put in some crusty stuff up there. Okay. Let's go back to our standard shader for this. Okay. But let's look at the sunset material. One of the shaders that you might have noticed is that there are skybox shaders. And you can choose which one, okay? A six-sided shader basically allows you to design a cube that you're going to be inside. And you can put the upper one, the lower one, the left, right, you know, and you can actually put in different images for each of these. This is great if you're designing like a scene, you know, with stars all around you or something like that. And you can actually create the graphic images for these stars, okay? But for my purposes, I'm going to use hold on a minute, skybox. I'm going to use a panoramic shader, okay? and I'm going to select it. Okay, it looks like it's already selected there for some reason. Okay, now I have that shader set. Now I can go back to my lighting, select it. Look how it's changed in this. Ooh, and you saw something happen there. There's my nice skybox sunset with a big seam in the middle of it. Okay, and we can kind of, back out. We can play the game or something like this. You can also go into the shader and do things like rotate the thing and kind of manipulate the image a little bit. The biggest thing that you have to do when you're creating an image for a shader like a skybox is to do some work with a graphics language outside of Unity, like Adobe Photoshop, or I use this graphics converter for Macintoshes just because it's free, okay? But basically, that's how you can create these kind of really interesting kind of backgrounds, by using an image and actually wrapping the image into the shader. So that's a pretty powerful thing to do, okay? Let's see now, what do I want to do here? Okay, so we're cool. We've created some great photos. I'm going to save this scene, okay? Save as, okay? And we'll call this one static image, okay? And now I'm going to create a new scene, okay? Okay, and it says untitled. Let's call this new scene, I guess we have to save it as. Save as, we will call it videos, okay? And we're just starting out with our basic stuff again. First thing I'm gonna do, of course, is to put in a cube, okay? There's our nice cube, okay? Yeah, it's got some weird default material on it now because we've already been creating cubes with materials and things like that, okay? But I'm going to use that cube eventually to play some videos on it. But before that, I can play videos even without being on the cube, okay? Let's go back, let's make our camera, let's move that in again a little bit, -5. Okay, so that we're a little bit closer to the cube. And I tell you what, let's yeah, that's good. We can see the top of the cube a little bit. Life is okay. Alrighty, how do we get a video to come in? Well, if you look here, it says video. There is a video player game object. I'm going to put that on, and it has all kinds of stuff, and you can see, wow, it's looking for a video clip. But you know what? If we click this, we have no video clips. We need a video clip. Well, it turns out that I have a video clip, all right? And this one that is near and dear to my heart, okay? I'll play it for you, okay? This is... Okay, so we're going to use that video clip. Now, what I'm doing there, that's my grandson about 4 years ago. And my son had these things that he loved as a kid called giant microbes. And the thing that he's giggling at is actually a model of malaria. So, yeah, we're kind of twisted people here, but I'm glad he found it so happy. Anyhow, so we're going to use that. So I'm going to bring it into my assets, okay? Let me go back to my assets here. Boom. All right. And now we've got our nice material here. Now, we're going to put it on our video player. All we have to do is click this. There it is, malaria laugh, okay? All right. Now we're ready to go, right? So I play it, and absolutely nothing happens, except we hear the sound. So it's playing. Why is nothing happening? Because it's not playing on anything, okay? We're hearing the sound, and we need to figure out what we want to play on. Well, it turns out that you do that down here in this thing called the render mode, okay? And it's set by default to a render texture, and we're going to come back to that, but I want to show you two others first, okay? when we look at this camera, okay, you see how there's a little rectangle there that's kind of like outlined, and there's a large rectangle there that's kind of outlined. And if we look, that large rectangle basically goes way far away, okay? Those are called the near and the far planes of the camera. And that's what it can see up close, and that's what it can see far away. And we can actually set this video player to send the video to the camera far plane or the camera near plane. Let's set it to the camera far plane, okay? Now if I play it, we'll have a cube. Oh, you know what? I forgot to make that a texture, I think. Actually, that should have worked. Let me see. Ah, I know why. Because the video player still, it's found the thing, but look, camera, none. It needs to know what camera I'm sending the far plane to. Because in Unity, you can actually have several different cameras if you want, okay? So I'm going to choose my main camera here. I thought I could just do it there. Okay, there we go. Go to scene, choose our main camera. And now it'll go to the camera far plane. Life is good. And see, there's our cube in front of it. Okay? In fact, that's the feature of the far plane. Every object that you make will be in front of it. It's always the farthest. It's like the skybox. In fact, you can create this as a skybox. It can become your skybox, and you could have like stuff in the background if you want to. Let's see what happens when we go to the near plane, though. Okay. Basically, it's the opposite of the far plane. Every object that you create will be behind it. So all we see is the video. Now, this is really helpful if you want to show a video in the middle of something that people are doing, you know, and that will just, you know, kind of grab them. In fact, I'm going to show you a project later on tonight where that was kind of important for the person creating it, okay? But suppose I want to play this video on my cube. How do I do that? Well, that's what that render texture is about, okay? And what we do is that we're going to make a texture. Like I said, that these things, they're rendering textures and materials and stuff like that. We're going to make a texture, and the camera is going to project its playback onto that texture. We'll make that texture be part of the cube. Now, the easy way to do that, I think I can simply just take the video, and I think I can just plop it on the cube. Okay. And if I look at the cube, you'll see that it doesn't have anything, okay? I'm not sure I can do that. Let's see what happens if I play it now. I can do that, okay? And what it did was basically create a texture. And let me look at my materials here. I'm not sure where it stashed it, okay? But if we look at our video player now, no, that's not right. That's not right, okay? What I want to do, I'm going to do it the longhand way. I'm going to create a texture, okay? Material. Where am I missing it? Render texture, right. Okay, and we're going to call this malaria. We'll call this render text. Okay. And this is important because this is also how we kind of create sizes and stuff like that, okay? And we're going to then, right, the video player wasn't actually rendering that texture onto it. It was doing it as a material, which wasn't right, okay? So we're going to take this render texture. It's just kind of sitting there. And we're going to take this and we're going to have our camera play to that render texture. Okay, and that render texture I'm going to put onto the cube. Now when we play it, we should see. There's the guy. Okay. Everything's good. Okay, and again, it's upside down. We can rotate the cube. Now, one of the things that you're noticing is it's kind of dark, okay? That's because if we look at the material, here's the render texture material, okay? We're going to turn the emission on, okay? And we're going to basically crank it up a little bit because this will allow it to kind of like emit the light that is not being reflected properly, okay? And let's try this. Let's play it. This might be too much now, okay? Here we go. Yeah, now it's a little bit too much. I think we can actually even just turn the color to the render text, and this should work, right? So now it's getting the colors actually from the video itself, and it is projecting it out. So it's not just relying upon the light that's impacting it. So that's generally what we want to do, is set the color to the texture itself. Now you notice how it's like kind of messed up, okay? Let's take a look here. Let me add a movement script to my camera again so that I can like move it in and out so we can see what's going on here. Okay. Oops, I wanted to put it up in assets. Do I already have observer move up there. Oh, that's right, because it was there from the other thing. Let me put this up on my camera then. Okay, so life should be okay. And let's do some things to this. Okay, let's first of all, let's rotate the cube so we can see it right side up. Okay, and let's make the cube a little bit bigger. Okay, let's give it a next scale of maybe 5. I'll give it a Y scale of maybe 3. Okay, yeah. And let's flatten it out though. Let's now make it a screen. So we're going to give it a Z scale of very, very, very sort of thin. And now if we play it, okay. Yeah. And my camera isn't moving at all. I might have made the Z a little bit too thin, okay. Okay. Yeah, it's weirdly not in perspective correctly. Now we can change that by going to the render texture, and we can change the size to be like 512 by 256. Okay, and then when I play it, now it's kind of back to normal. Okay, that's the way that you can change how much of the thing that it's doing. Oh, there's one other thing that I forgot to show you with the other stuff, but I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is I'm modifying the size of this render texture to try to reflect the aspect ratio of the original video. And these are parameters that you can kind of fool around with until you get something happening the way you want it. But basically, that's what's involved in bringing video in. And you don't have to use it on a cube. You can wrap a video on a sphere. You can wrap it on some object you import from somewhere else. I mean, there's any number of things that you can do to this thing, okay? All right, now, the audio. Let's go back and look at this, okay? Now, the audio output mode says it's direct here, okay? You can make it be none if you don't want to hear that sound, okay? I don't know why that didn't work. That should have closed it off. I think I've messed something up when I was doing some stuff earlier. I don't think I have a version of this to show. Yeah. There's a problem with the audio too, and in fact, I'm going to defer that to to a later class because I need to track down a particular little bug that I found that causes a little bit of problems with this. So we're not going to deal with audio in the render texture, okay? But what I am going to do is I'm going to stop this now, okay? And I'm going to go back and clean it up a little bit before I put it up for you to download. But essentially, these are the steps that are involved in bringing videos and images and such like this, and all of a sudden you can start doing some pretty amazing things because, like I said, you can wrap videos onto anything, so that you can have, they can be very subtle parts of your scene, and you can create some dynamism that wouldn't be there necessarily. And playing back videos is pretty trivial too. It doesn't take a lot of computing power. As opposed to what John was talking about with the lighting and things like that, because they have to compute all this stuff. With videos, they're just playing it back, and that's highly optimized anyhow for computers. Anyhow, what I want to do is I want to quit Unity now and show you a project that makes use of some of these things, okay? And it was actually pretty easy to do. This was one of our sound art students, Tim Kwasny, had created these videos that were really kind of fun and intense. And the videos were just videos you watched. They weren't interactive or anything. And they had these kind of 3 blobs. And you would see these blobs and they'd kind of flicker a little bit, And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he would do a fast cut to a really intense graphic part that just like put up all these kind of horizontal and diagonal lines going like that and everything like this, then would stop and go back to those 3 little blobs again. So I talked with him, I said, that'd be really cool if we made it interactive. So we had the 3 blobs, and you had an observer that was moving around, but he would trigger a trigger. And whenever he triggered the trigger, then that like intense video would occur. So let me show you, first of all, I'm going to show you the version that had no sound. With just the graphics, and then I'll show you the version that had sound, and kind of talk about how we did the sound for it. Okay, let's go to Unity Hub. All right, and we're going to go to Kwasny. Here it comes. Okay, and I want to talk about these rocks a little bit too. Okay. Okay.
There is a comment in the chat.
Oh yeah. What's the comment?
That maybe in your previous project there was a duplicate video attached to the cube.
Yeah, I think that's what happened because I dragged it up there twice. I should have created the material first and then did the render texture and dragged it up that way. But by dragging it twice, and that's why you saw that double image. I was trying to figure out why am I seeing that, as I was kind of talking to you guys. But then I gave up on it. So yeah, but I think you got the basic idea. It shouldn't be too difficult to figure out. All right, so anyhow, this is our basic Tim Kwasny scene. Okay, here's our camera. There's our rocks, and I have something way back there. It looks like a point light or something like that. Yeah, giving lighting to the rocks, okay? And I have this thing called the activator, which, let me turn on the rendering thing for it, okay? No, the trigger. Okay, if I turn on the renderer, you'll see it. Okay, so if I go through that, I'll turn off the render. That will trigger the thing. Oh, the activator is just that's an object that doesn't really do anything except for something I'll tell you in a second. Okay, but let's go ahead and play this and see what it does. Okay, so again, this has no sound. Okay, and there's the rocks, and see how they're flickering. That was actually kind of hard to do. That's what that activator does. It actually just temporarily turns off and on the rendering of those rocks. Now, if I move forward, I'm going to go through that square that you cannot see that's a trigger, and it will trigger the playback on the camera near plane of Tim's video. So we go here and we go. If I go back, I'll turn it off. So what was that about? Once again, okay. And the sound you hear is the sound from the video, okay? So basically I say, well, what's going on here? Let me go over here and look at this rock. Oh, look, it didn't trigger. That's because, remember, the trigger was cleverly set up so that it wasn't actually completely filling the space in front of me. So this gives a little bit of mystery to this stuff. And I go, well, let me go look at that rock. Okay, and I'll be honest, you know, unfortunately, like I said, you can't have access to our 3D goggles yet, but this is pretty intense, you know, when all of a sudden your entire universe just kind of goes like that, okay? Well, let me show you the version we did with sound, okay? And talk a little bit about that. Don't save.
Brad, I have a
Yes.
question. So
Sure.
how do you think the light is here? And is actually the black plane a skybox that is just black, or?
Yep. I created, in fact, let me show you. Let me bring up the other one. I'll show you what I did for that, okay? All right, so we'll look at Quasny 1, which also has sound, and we'll take a look at those things first before I look at the sound, okay? Here it comes. Okay, so the lighting is just the directional light, only I made it pure white. And if you can see, I set the angle so it's kind of coming down on these rocks from kind of an angle up to the upper right. You know, so that's the only lighting that you're seeing. If you now look at the lighting, what I did was this skybox material. See, it says Quasny matte. If you go down here to our materials, Quasny Sky Matte. Okay, okay. Let me look at the inspector for that. All it is a standard shader thing that's completely black. Okay. And basically, remember when I don't even use a skybox, I could have even set this up as a panoramic thing or something like this, but it just would have been black. Okay, so just by making a material that's black in color and then loading that in as my skybox material, it created that black on the back, okay? And then I didn't really care about the ambient lighting at all because these rocks were basically being lit by this directional light. So that's how I was able to create that effect. In fact, what we could do, just to see what it does, is we can actually go into this, and I believe I can change the color on it to like red. Now, it may not work because it's not actually a skybox material. Yeah, it's not gonna work, okay? Let me change it just for fun to a skybox material. Ooh, that wasn't good. I wonder if Unity just suddenly stopped making sound properly too. Okay. Oh no, that's the ambient under sound. Okay. Let's turn this into a skybox shader. Okay. Let's make it be panoramic. Okay. And I'm just simply going to choose that Quasny Sky Matte. Where did it go? Oh, it's not letting me do it. Shoot. Okay, we're not going to do this now because again, I'm kind of losing my mind and not remembering quite how to do it. Okay. Let's go back to standard shader. Yeah, okay. Stay tuned for that one in the future, okay? All right, but what I did want to show you was what's going on with the sound, okay? So let's start it up. Bring this weird sound. Go in and trigger this. For some reason, the sound in Unity has kind of broken again. Weird. Don't know why. But let's take a look at this. Okay, what did I do? What is that sound that you're hearing before this stuff goes on? Well, it's this object called ambient sound, which is basically an object that was created as uh, an empty game object, because all it does is hold the sound script. Let's take a look at that sound script. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Come on, sound script. Here it comes. Okay. Here it comes. All right. So basically, it's everything you've seen before. All that stuff. It finds the RTC mix game object, and then it calls this function called start sound. Okay. And public void start sound. Okay. It looks for, we have a sample that we're playing, kind of like, the Whidbey Island stuff called quasni-am-source.wave, which is basically me going like that, and then shifted down by a few octaves. And then I'm doing that same thing where I'm going to generate a max bang periodically and keeping that kind of going by fading itself out and fading it back in every 7 seconds or so. Okay. So it's not a long sound. Okay. But then I also have a public void thing. That means that we're going to be using these functions from somewhere else, okay, called stop sound. Now, here's what's weird. Stop sound calls do stop sound. Now, remember when I said, how do you stop an ongoing sound file playback if the sound file is like 15 or 20 seconds long? This is how you do it. You say rtcmix.flush score. That just takes everything that's currently doing and stops it. Okay. Why didn't I simply just put that up here? Well, this invoke command is really clever. It says, call that function, but call it at 0.2 of a second after you get this. Why do I do that? It's because the stopping of the sound and the starting of the video were disconnected. With the videos, they're a little tricky sometimes on fire up. When you have to wait for the start frame, otherwise you get like a weird kind of artifact at the beginning of it. And it took the computer about 0.2 of a second, about 1/10 of a second. So basically, I'm letting this sound go for an additional 0.2 of a second when I tell it to stop, which will allow the sound to actually come into the sound of the video. And that's how you are able to get it when it stops. When I actually trigger it, you'll notice, okay? In fact, we'll hear it. Okay? When I trigger it. Now, even there, you could hear a little bit of a gap in the sound. I'd probably want to increase that to maybe 0.3 or something like this. And the reason there's a gap in the sound is because we're overloading the computer. This computer cannot handle it on Zoom. And again, there's something weird going on with the audio again that I can't figure out right now anyhow. But basically, that was basically just a parameter that you can tune to get it so that it works. And yeah, you just kind of use your eyes and your ears for that. But knowing about that invoke function is really, really, really clever, because you can say invoke something that's going to happen 10 seconds from now, something that's going to happen 2 minutes from now if you want. It's a way of doing scheduling inside Unity that's very, very powerful if you think about how it might be used. Okay. All right. So that's kind of basically it. I'm going to put these up for you to download and take a look at. They're kind of fun. And especially if you've got some goggles, eventually you'll see some of our goggles. You'll notice that we have weird names for our videos, like Free Fall Unity, Totally Not a Virus. And then the weird names of these rocks, like Untitled Blasted Planetoid. We were just kind of having fun in class when we made this and came up with some really goofy names. So just kind of ignore them. However, I want to point out, look at these rocks, okay? Like this guy. Okay. Let me see what they look like. Okay. All right. Rock. You can't really see it, rock 2. But if you look closely at these rocks, they're kind of textured. They're not regular spheres or anything like that, okay? They have some like features to them and things like that. And they're all based on this thing, which is a weird kind of object that came in. It was imported, okay? And it's called the Untitled Blasted Planetoid. What the heck is that? Well, this is what I wanted to show you. One more thing. We're not going to look very deeply at this tonight, but I want to point out that it's out there, okay? Let me quit my Unity script here. Quit Visual Studio. Unity is really good for organizing stuff, but the stuff that it organizes can be things like videos or images or something like this. But a lot of times they're actual objects that you make elsewhere, because Unity is not that great at making objects. You know, like I said, you can make cubes, you can make spheres, you can put textures on them, you can do all kinds of stuff like that. But that's not going to be a really compelling and realistic version of something like a rock that has a lot of modeledness to its surface or something like that. In general, what you can do is use a program like Adobe Photoshop, or like I said, sometimes I use that graphic converter, but not really. But the ones that you really want are 3D modeling programs. And probably the single most popular one now, because it's free and it's very powerful, is a program called Blender, okay? And it's really, really deep and complicated. And, you know, there's a lot of really great tutorials. I'll put some links to some if you're interested in starting to look with this. But it's basically, it's a thing that makes objects. Now it even has some animation capabilities, but that's like way beyond what I'm able to do with this, okay? But just for fun, now this is the latest version of Blender, and I'll be honest, I have to go back and review a bunch of the videos because I have no idea how it works. You know, I'm just using my basic knowledge of earlier versions to kind of get this off. But let's just make a weird rock, okay? I'm going to get rid of this cube, and I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to add, again, here's, you don't add a sphere, you add a mesh, and you can choose what kind of mesh to apply to this. And this is the thing that makes these modeling stuff, you know, kind of really cool, okay? Is that you can take this mesh and go in and start like fooling around with it. That's what we're going to do. We're going to enter edit mode, and we're going to go here, and underneath the mesh transform, we're going to randomize it. Whoa, look at that, okay? And just for fun, let's also bend it a little bit, okay? And just for fun, let's warp it too, okay? So we're going to go here to warp. Whoa, now we've got something pretty bizarre looking, okay? And if we want to, what we can do is, see, how do I move around? Okay. Now we're going to go back to the mesh, and we're going to actually go down here, and we're going to go to the shading of it, and we're going to smooth the faces out. Now if we go back to the object mode, we can see that we have this rather unique looking thing. There we go. That has certain features to it, okay? That's essentially, you know, with a bit more of the tools, because there's some weirdness about this, you know, with these kind of odd kind of things. You can go in and do all kinds of sculpting on this. That's how I made those rocks, because you can save this as a particular description file. And again, drag it in your assets, and you can start using it as an object in Unity. And you can do stuff like project an image on this. You can change the reflectance capabilities. There's any number of things that you can do to give this even more kind of character than it already has. But again, this class isn't going to be about Blender. It's really complicated, and we're just going to kind of shut it down here. But I will put in links to the tutorials, because it's a very powerful tool to have alongside, you know, other things you might want to do. Okay. Tell you what, I think I'm going to shut things down now, because there's one more thing that I wanted to show you, but we don't have that much time left in the class. And I also want to kind of figure out what's going on with my audio again here. And yeah, at the beginning of next class, because we're going to be doing like sound stuff, I want to go back through some of the things that we were doing tonight and just kind of make sure that all the loose ends are tied up. And like I said, I'll get everything up on the web page for people to download and take a look at, because it's the best way to learn how to do it, is to just start doing it. Okay, so let me stop my share here. Okay, aha, lots of chat stuff. Nina, is there anything that I should look through here? And yeah, the duplicate video. Yeah, thanks, Nina.
I
Okay,
think, yeah, we solved most of the things real time.
yeah,
Well, if anybody has a question now or a comment.
yeah, yeah. Everything cool with everybody? Okay. Yeah, it's, I mean, this isn't that difficult, you know. And again, we weren't doing really any coding or anything like that. And a lot of it is you just try stuff out, you know, drag things around and say, what happens if I put this here? Oh, it turned into that. And then you can all of a sudden start developing some really interesting new things as a result of that. That's what makes this program fun, you know, is it's the ability to try things out and like fool around with stuff. Um, yeah, and you can get really subtle, you know, once you start, you know, getting grasp of what these tools can do. You know, again, the lighting capabilities alone, you know, most Unity scenes are going to have many lights in them, because that's what gives it its realism. You know, if you go to like some of the big games, you know, and again, it's highly optimized. If you are paying attention to the baking and the stuff like that, you can do a lot. Anyhow, and just, you know, being able to bring in stuff from the real world. You know, suddenly we're getting away from just the spheres. Again, that's why I wanted to show you the terrain stuff ahead of time, because that's a little bit cooler than just making planes that are blue and you know, cylinders that are red. You know, all of a sudden you've got the capabilities of designing stuff that looks kind of interesting. Add some good sound to it, and off we go. Okay, gang. I think that's it. All right. Again, send me emails if you got comments or questions. I'm going to stop the recording now.